I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Sharon Kirkpatrick. She's an expert in dietary methodology, she's a nutrition researcher, and she's also a dietitian in Canada. And she's going to help us work out which method of measuring your food intake is most helpful when it comes to trying to improve your eating habits. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Claire.
Can you tell us, of all the different methods of recording dietary intake, if someone's really trying to improve their eating habits, what do you think gives them the most information or is the best one for them to use?
So when we think about intake on a given day, either we're looking backwards and recalling what we had yesterday, or we're reporting or recording in real time, and that's called a food record. So people can use paper and pencil or a mobile app and keep track of everything that they eat and drink at each eating occasion. Sometimes they could also weigh each item so to give them a better sense of portion sizes.
Do you think that's helpful for people in terms of learning about the quality of the food that they're eating?
Yes, I think it can help people to figure out sort of their patterns of eating, so the meals and snacks that they're having, the times of day, and also the different types of foods and drinks that they might be consuming at different times of day. Think about maybe swaps they can make, so switching out something that maybe is not providing a lot of nutrients for something that like fruits and vegetables or whole grains.
So when people start on a healthy lifestyle program and they suddenly find out it's a really good idea to keep a record of their food intake, does that very act of recording what you're eating, does that change what they eat? And is that a problem?
Actually, it does. And we call that reactivity in research, where people actually react to the act of recording. For research purposes, that can be a problem because we want to know what you actually ate and drank on a given day. But when you're trying to make changes and to achieve a healthier diet, that actually can be a helpful thing. As you're tracking, it can motivate you to make changes. As well, there's something we call social desirability bias. So we all have a sense of what's healthy and what's less healthy, and we kind of all want to believe that we're more towards the healthy side, and that's how we want to present ourselves, right? So we can make changes to what we're actually doing so that we can stick with that image of ourselves, and that can be helpful when you're trying to move towards healthier patterns.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thanks for that. So from what you've said, it sounds like when someone's embarking on a healthy lifestyle program and they're trying to eat more healthily, keeping a food record's a really good idea. It might make you change what you're eating, but that's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's not a problem if your goal is to achieve healthier eating. It can be a problem for figuring out maybe what your original patterns were, but in terms of an individual, you're not too concerned with that if you're able to move over to some healthier patterns.
Now, it sounds like it's a lot of work, but it's initially worth the effort to keep a food record. But are there any other shorter or more brief ways that people can get a bit of feedback about what they're eating?
So that's a good point, and I think it can be helpful for people at the beginning to do something more comprehensive and complete like a food record, but as they get going and sort of get a better sense of what their eating patterns look like, perhaps they could switch over to some kind of app. I know that you have the Australian Healthy Eating Survey, and other countries also have similar kinds of programs. So in Canada, for example, Dietitians of Canada has developed something called the Eat Tracker that people can use on a given day or several days to record what they're eating and drinking. They actually get some feedback in terms of how that matches up to dietary guidance, so they can get a sense of if they're eating enough fruits and vegetables and that kind of thing.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a really good idea in the country where you live to check in with your Dietitians Association to see if they've got a free brief app or tool, or ask around to find out what other tools apart from the weighed food record will be helpful for monitoring your food intake.
Certainly, I think there's a lot of different tools out there, and one thing to keep in mind, I should clarify that the Eat Tracker I mentioned isn't necessarily a brief tool, but it does give you sort of a quick way to do that food recording, and you could choose how little or how much detail you want to provide. But in various countries, you can access all kinds of different apps for tracking your diet. And with those, it's important to think about where they came from, who developed them, where the information's coming from. Some of them are actually crowdsourced. So if you were to report something that wasn't in the database, you would be prompted to enter in the nutrition information from the label. And so the accuracy of those kinds of things can differ. It's also important to kind of think about what are your goals and does that line up with the app. Some of them can be quite narrowly focused around achieving a particular body shape and size, and that might not be your emphasis. Maybe it's more on achieving healthy eating overall.
So it sounds like we're in agreement, though, that some sort of recording or monitoring can be helpful in those initial stages, particularly of trying to change your food intake and improve your eating habits.
I think the research would support that. There have been some reviews that have looked at different studies and found that there is some evidence to support self-monitoring. And in fact, in intervention studies, researchers use food records to help their participants to make those changes that they're hoping they'll make.
And that was what the next question I was going to ask you. So does monitoring your food intake, does that predict success in terms of being able to change your lifestyle? Is it worth the effort? That's what I'm asking.
I think it does, and particularly initially. I think we with anything, we need more research to better understand the long-term implications, but I think it can give people that sort of jump start that they need to get a better sense of what their goals should be and the types of changes that they might want to think about making, and also to keep those realistic. And I guess one other thing to mention as well is, again, keeping your eye on the overall eating pattern as opposed to getting really caught up in a particular dietary component like calorie counting or focusing solely on sugars without thinking about the overall healthfulness of the diet.
That's really interesting, Sharon. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And share your expertise in dietary assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you.